This video is for people who have a Baofeng handheld transceiver, don't have any license, and who don't really know what they're doing. I'll help you use one of these with minimal risk of interfering with other radio users. I don't encourage unlicensed radio use or use of non-certified equipment, but a lot of you are going to do that anyway. So this video is harm reduction. This video is USA specific, and it's specific to the Baofeng UV5R model and some of its close relatives. We're going to focus on 3 settings in the Baofeng that you need to worry about to minimize your risk of causing problems. Those settings are frequency, power, and bandwidth. The first, frequency, is the number that's displayed on the LCD on the front of this Baofeng when you're operating it. And that's given in megahertz normally as the unit, and that's where on the radio frequency spectrum you're transmitting. That matters because the RF spectrum is a crowded place, there are a lot of users, and you don't want to transmit on top of the police or the Forest Service or radio astronomers or people doing experiments or anything like that, because you'd interfere with them and cause problems for them. The second setting we're going to worry about is power. That's menu option number 2 in the Baofeng. That's set as high or low. High is normally 4 watts, low is normally 1 watt. Power is how much energy per second is leaving the radio. That matters because more power means your signal goes further, more risk of interfering with other users. There are also power limits on some frequencies. So we want to use low power wherever possible and definitely wherever required if we're already operating this against the regulations in some way. The third setting we want to worry about is bandwidth. Bandwidth is how much space the signal occupies on the radio frequency spectrum. When you transmit, you're not just transmitting exactly on a single frequency. Your signal goes a little bit to higher frequencies and lower frequencies than whatever the number is on the front of the radio. And this radio can be set, menu option number 5, WN, to wide or narrow bandwidth. You need to use the correct bandwidth for whatever frequency you're on. That matters because even if you're not exactly on the same frequency as another user, if your bandwidth is set too wide, you can interfere with somebody on a nearby frequency, and you don't want to do that. So let's talk about some of the basic principles of how to operate one of these without causing problems for other people. Basic ideas of Baofeng harm reduction. First, we use a frequency that's already commonly used for FM voice simplex. Second, we use the lowest transmit power we can. We set it to low by default. We only use high when we're on a frequency that allows higher power, and where low doesn't work, power is set by menu option number 2 in the transceiver. And we're going to use the correct bandwidth. We will only use wide bandwidth where wide bandwidth is allowed. Bandwidth is menu option number 5 in this transceiver. So let's talk about some FM voice simplex frequencies. The first set of frequencies we can look at belong to FRS, the Family Radio Service. This is a channelized radio service used by handheld walkie-talkies. And they're usually the walkie-talkies you see at sporting goods stores that are like sold in pairs and blister packs. There are 22 channels. We're not going to use all of them though, because channels 8 through 14 are very close to GMRS repeater channels, and we might cause problems if we were to use a non-compliant bit of equipment on those channels. Channels 8 through 14 also require only half a watt of power at most, and the Baofeng UV5R and its cousins can't transmit with only half a watt of power. So we'll just do channels 1 through 7 and 15 through 22. So remember, the 3 things we have to set are the frequency, the power, and the bandwidth. So let's say we want to use our Baofeng on FRS Channel 1. So we're going to put in a frequency of 462.5625 megahertz. We're going to set our transmit power to low, and we're going to set our bandwidth to narrow. So we're setting our UV5R for FRS Channel 1. So that's 462.5625 megahertz. and the radio automatically inserts the little 5 at the end. And FRS Channel 1 uses low power. It's limited to 2 watts. Low power on the Baofeng is 1 watt, so that complies. So we change it from high power, it's menu option number 2, to low power. And you can see now we have our frequency entered, and a little letter L has appeared at top left. That means we're on low power. So we've set the frequency, we've set the power, now we need to set the bandwidth. So we go back into the menu, we go to option number 5, we're on wide right now, we need to be on narrow. We go to narrow, and you see a little letter N has appeared. That means narrow bandwidth. So we're on the right frequency, 462.5625 megahertz. We're on low power, that's less than 2 watts, and we're on narrow bandwidth. So right now, this handheld transceiver is set up to use FRS Channel 1. The next set of frequencies I want to talk about is multi-use radio service, MURS. This is a lower frequency than FRS. Like FRS, it's license-free, although the equipment has to be type accepted, and this is not type accepted for FRS or MURS, which is why this is technically prohibited. But MURS is kind of unique in that it only has 5 channels, and the channels have different bandwidth limits. The first 3 channels require narrow bandwidth. The 4th and 5th channel can have narrow or wide bandwidth. So let's say that we want to program MURS channel 1 into our UV5R. So we're going to put in the frequency for channel 1, which is 151.820 megahertz. We're going to adjust the power. So there's a 2 watt limit on MURS, so we want to be on low transmit power, and we are. And then we want to change the bandwidth. MURS channel 1 uses narrow bandwidth. So we go up to menu option 5, WN, and we see that we're on narrow, so we're good. And we exit. So right now, this HT is set up for MURS channel 1. We're on 151.820 megahertz. We're on low power, and we're on narrow bandwidth. But let's say we want to use MURS channel 5, which is 154.600 megahertz. We're going to confirm that we are on low power, and we are. We're going to go up to menu option 5, and we're going to change our bandwidth from narrow to wide. So now we are on MURS channel 5, 151.600 megahertz, low power, and there's no N now, so we're on wide bandwidth. So this HT is now set up for MURS channel 5. So if you're going to use your Baofeng without a license, the best place to use it is probably FRS, because this is already used by a lot of handheld walkie-talkies. There are already FM voice conversations happening here. You're unlikely to be stepping on anything important like radio astronomy or the Forest Service or police, people doing experiments, anything like that. I recommend using FRS channels 1 through 7 or 15 through 22. Remember, you need to enter the frequency correctly, set your transmit power, that's menu option 2, to low for FRS, and set your bandwidth, that's menu option number 5, to narrow for FRS. If you don't want to use FRS for some reason, the next best alternative is probably MURS, because this, like FRS, is license-free. This equipment isn't certified for FRS or MURS, but at least you're not doing something without a call sign. For MURS, you have 5 different channels. The frequencies are right here. You're going to set your UV5R to low power, menu option number 2 for all of these. And you're going to set your bandwidth to narrow for the first 3 frequencies, and set it to narrow or wide for the 4th or 5th frequencies. If you don't want to use FRS or MURS, your next best but not great option is probably General Mobile Radio Service, GMRS. And you'll notice this set of frequencies matches FRS. GMRS and FRS use the same frequencies. The difference is that GMRS requires a license and call signs, which you don't have, and GMRS allows higher power. You can set the transceiver to high power on GMRS, and you can also use wide bandwidth on GMRS. Again, I recommend that you do not use channels 8 through 14. The reason for that being, like I said earlier, GMRS repeater inputs are spaced in between channels 8 through 14. You're not using properly certified equipment. You don't want to end up inadvertently interfering with repeater inputs. That would be a big mess. If you're using GMRS, I recommend staying away from anybody who's using a call sign, and definitely stay away from GMRS repeaters. GMRS repeaters are set up by people who are volunteers spending their own money, and they usually don't want random people using their Baofengs unlicensed without call signs on their repeaters. The worst option for using your UV5R unlicensed is to use the amateur radio bands. I don't recommend this for a lot of reasons. There are a lot of things going on in the amateur bands. I have the band plans for 70 centimeters and 2 meters here. And these vary a bit by region. These are kind of the generic nationwide ones that ARRL puts out. But there's a lot of stuff you can interfere with on amateur radio especially that you might not even hear. There are amateur radio satellites. There are people doing weak signal single sideband experiments. There are people doing meteor scatter, people doing Earth, Moon, Earth. All sorts of stuff like that. Repeater inputs, digital modes that'll kind of sound like static to you. It really is the worst option to use amateur. I much recommend using FRS MURS or GMRS instead, but some of you are going to do this anyway, so I'm trying to tell you how to do this in the least bad way possible. If you were going to get on the amateur bands, on 2 meters, I would recommend using frequencies in the range from 146.400 megahertz to 146.580 megahertz. Those are the parts of that's part of the 2 meter band devoted to FM simplex. And then I recommend using 147.420 megahertz to 147.570 megahertz. Again, that's FM simplex. On 70 centimeters, I recommend 445.015 megahertz to 446.985 megahertz. 70 centimeters varies a bit more by region, but these are generally safe places to have FM simplex conversations without interfering with anything. I recommend avoiding, though, 146.520 megahertz and 446.000 megahertz. Those are the nationwide calling frequencies. A lot of people will monitor that, and you're going to be irritating people if you are using this if you're using amateur bands without a license. So again, I can't stress this enough. I really recommend not using the amateur bands when you're operating one of these guys unlicensed. I really instead recommend FRS is probably your best way to do unlicensed use, and MURS as your second best way. Absolutely don't operate your radio outside of one of these things we've just talked about, because you could interfere with things that you can't even hear, like police using digital modes, radio astronomy, something like that.